Leafs take care of business against the Blue Jackets and move one step closer to clinching home ice. Let's recap the game and get an update on Matt Murray on today's edition of Locked On Leafs.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the April 5th edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's your one-stop shop for all things Leafs. I'm your host, Mike DiStefano from TSN 1050 Toronto Radio, also known as Al's brother on TSN's Overdrive and TSN 1050's Leafs Lunch. Joining me, it's my co-host, Dave Morassutti from Sportsnet, also a writer for the NHLPA. Locked On Leafs is a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast, so be sure to subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts from. You can also check us out on video format up on YouTube. That's Locked On Leafs on YouTube. We got new content coming out for you guys each and every day, weekday at the very least, Monday through Friday, 5 shows. It's all Leafs all the time. We're still looking to get to our goal of 3,000 subscribers on YouTube by the playoffs. So 2 more weeks to get 250 people to sub up. So if you're watching and you're not subbed and you enjoy what we have to talk about today and you want to keep track of how, what's going on in Leafland, especially as the playoffs near, hit that subscription button, hit the notification bell, and you'll be notified when you get new videos each morning. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, the sportsbook, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Network. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. Dave, if you would have bet the puck line for the Maple Leafs tonight, you would have definitely cashed that one thanks to a late Auston Matthews empty net winner to make it a 4-2 victory over the Columbus Blue Jackets. With that one, the Maple Leafs moved to 102 points on the year and now have a 96% chance of clinching home ice in round 1 with the victory. Your initial thoughts on tonight's game?
Yeah, it kind of seemed this was the type of effort we expect the Leafs to have against a team like Columbus. We haven't always seen it. I guess maybe the surprise, or maybe if you've been watching the Leafs the last couple of weeks, the other guys, I'm going to call them, stepping up their game in this one. Zach Aston-Reese.
Yeah, we in the biz, we like to call that depth, David.
Ooh, the D word. We're bringing up the D word right now.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong, buddy. You get 2 goals from Zach Aston-Reese. Kerfoot chips in on a goal, and then obviously they get the empty net insurance marker out of Auston Matthews. Just a little easy, empty netter for him. But yeah, like those are big goals, and came up big for this team tonight. Obviously, depth has been a question mark of late. Do we need to see more of those guys getting some offense? I think the answer is yes, you do, as we approach the playoffs. So it is nice to see a game like tonight when really, I wouldn't even say that, realistically, Toronto was all over Columbus. Like, it's not even like the big boys weren't firing tonight. Mm-hmm. It's not like they didn't have any chances. I think Auston Matthews had 9 scoring chances he was credited for on natural stat trick. I think 5 of which were high danger chances. So there was a lot of volume and high percentage opportunities for the big boys tonight. But that kid was pretty darn good. Jet Greaves, the local Cambridge product. Go figure. Leave it to a GTA-ish. Cambridge isn't quite GTA, but a Southern Ontario boy to make his NHL debut between the pipes in the city of Toronto, and for him to come up strong. 46 save performance was terrific. But yeah, it was only kind of the depth guys who were able to beat him. Funny enough.
Yeah, it was. If you were on the Discord, everyone was just like, "Yeah, let's throw in the towel." Southern Ontario kid making his debut against the Leafs. It's funny because we've seen a lot of those types of performances, not just against Leafs, but around the NHL. Like Dylan Ferguson had a very similar performance, although in a winning effort. But like Dylan Ferguson had that massive game in his season debut for the Senators.
Yeah.
It just seems like a lot of those performances are happening around the NHL. Typically, you don't really see a lot of that.
So Jet Greaves, right? So 46 save performance tonight is 5th all time in terms of what was the stat here? I just had it. Hold on one second. 5th all time. Jet Greaves stopped 46 shots in his NHL debut and set the Jackets record for most saves in their first appearance with the franchise, but 5th all time in terms of most saves in an NHL debut with 46, which ties Kevin Mandolese, who did it 2 months ago on February 14th
Yep.
with 46. Meanwhile, you look at the other guys who are all on that list ahead of him. You're looking at 2015, which actually wasn't that long ago, 1998, 1983, and 1976. So only once since 1998 has somebody had more than 46 saves in their NHL debut. And of course, Jet Greaves comes and does that against Toronto, but in a losing effort. So to no avail, didn't matter because the Blue Jackets stink. Apparently, so I don't know if you heard Joseph Wall's comments post game about the second goal that went in on him. Apparently, he like hit a rut and he just went down, like he just fell, and it was a wide open. No, the first goal. Sorry,
That first
first
goal, I
goal.
was going to say.
Yeah, the first goal, and it just fell out of position, and it was kind of an easy goal from there for Columbus. The second one. What are your thoughts on that second goal? Because it was a nice play shot, but also you'd like to be able to take away everything, above you like that. You know what I mean? Like I'm conflicted on that second goal.
Yeah, I mean, especially because the game was, it just seemed like the game was kind of lolling around. Like there wasn't a lot happening. And then all of a sudden they score that goal and they're like, oh, we're still in this.
Mm,
And like that's where you like to see it. Like you like to see a stop there. It wasn't, he didn't have a great Eric Robinson. I think, yeah, he's the one that scored. He didn't have a
yeah.
great angle on the shot either. Like coming in short side, the
That's what I
speed.
mean. Like I just thought like
Okay.
that's one that 99 times out of 100, Joe Wall probably saves. He just
Yeah.
comes out looking big, looking tall, and you take away the top of the net on an angle like that. They shouldn't be able to beat you short side and high, and they did. But nonetheless, I guess it was a really nicely placed shot by Robinson. But I'm not going to nitpick that one though. Joseph Wall was pretty good tonight. 24, 26 stops, 5-1 now on the season. I do want to get your thoughts though before we break into our 3 stars of the game. On if you were surprised when you saw the lineup in morning skates today and the big shakeup, and then how you think it all played out with the shakeup in the top 6 and on the deep. I guess all the deep pairs were shaken up as well.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I guess obviously when we saw Ryan O'Reilly out there initially with practice, you thought, oh, is he going to come back? And then you saw he was getting the extra work, and you heard that Nylander was just getting the game skate off, and they were going to put him in. And so we discussed like our lines, and we brought up the idea of obviously Tavares and Marner together, and how they would work together better, and then Matthews and Yarncroke, how they would continue to play together, and Bunting moves up to the top 6, and like all those things we discussed kind of happened, and I was a little surprised. I just would never have expected to see a Tavares, Nylander, Marner trio.
Yeah, it's not something we see a lot, right? Did
No.
you think that it worked though? Like I thought that Nylander had a little bit more jump playing with someone who's got some pace like Mitch Marner. And then Tavares was just getting in those right spots.
Yeah.
Like he was in around the net being dangerous like he typically is when he plays with Mitch Marner.
He knows that when you're playing with Mitch Marner, you just have to make sure you got to get yourself in those scoring positions, right? And I think that's the intuitive that Marner and Tavares have playing together just makes me, it kind of reinforces the idea that it works better if they're still together, because Matthews was still pretty good, right? Like Auston Matthews without Mitch Marner did not look like it was like Matthews was out of place at all. So
No.
I think this reinforces the idea that, you know what, like you get a deeper lineup when you do this. The third line with Achari, Abruzzese, and Kerfoot, didn't expect to see that. But Chari, you saw his presence, laying down the body, which is good to see after he was off with like a neck/whiplash injury. So that was good to see. And then that fourth line, pretty good. Like that's a fourth line I think should stick around for a little bit, because that's probably the best I've seen Sam Lafferty in a really long time.
Well, Dave, it's funny you say that because today on Leafs Lunch, Frankie Corrado and I had to put together an ideal lineup. That was my fourth line. And I swear to you, this is fact because I was kind of bouncing these ideas off of you last night before we saw the lines today. And that was the fourth line that I ended up going with. Yeah. And funny enough, we wake up and all of a sudden Sheldon Keefe has the same idea, puts those guys out together, and they perform well, come out with a couple of goals. So yeah, it gave me a nice smile, I suppose I could say, seeing that line ending up having some success. Zach Aston-Reese 2 goals. I think Lafferty assisted on both of them as well. So certainly, definitely good to see that fourth line having a solid night. As for Auston Matthews, I'll tell you my thoughts on the other side, because he makes an appearance in my 3 stars of the night. So I'm not going to burn all the stats that I've got ready to go to talk about AM34 and the night that I thought he had. I also have a story to share with you about a Leafs executive whom I had a conversation with at the game tonight. So I will share that story also on the other side. And we got an update on Matt Murray as well. So we'll get to all of that and more. But first, Dave, have a word from our show sponsor.
Yes, today's show is brought to you by Indeed. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could handpick the best stars for your business team? If you're building your talent roster, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent with Indeed's fast. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like matching, assessments, and virtual interviews. Hate waiting. Indeed data shows over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job. Obviously we're all looking to get the best candidates you can for any potential job. And that's why candidates you invite to apply through Instant Match are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see it in search, according to US Indeed data. With Indeed, matching as soon as you sponsor posts gets you a short list of quality candidates whose resume on Indeed match your job description. Boom. It's like hiring at warp speed. Indeed does the hard hiring work for you. Sponsor job, and they'll match you with the quality candidates whose resumes fit your job description when you post. With Indeed, you can start hiring fast. Join over 3 million businesses worldwide using Indeed to hire great local talent fast. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality candidates that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. So make sure, go to Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti, your hosts here on Locked On Leafs. Let's get to our 3 stars, and then I'll share the story. So you gotta wait a little bit longer to hear that story. My run-in with a Leafs exec tonight at the Leafs game. So 4-2, the Maple Leafs come away with the victory, one being an empty netter. But I would say that the score isn't quite indicative of how much Toronto actually controlled and laid a beat down on the Blue Jackets. They just got some pretty good goaltending from a guy who comes in as my 3rd star, actually. I know we typically give them to Maple Leafs here, but I got to give Jet Greaves a star, man. Like, I was not expecting him to do a whole lot. I came out and thought it was going to be point night the second I saw the report that this kid was going to be starting. I mean, deep down, I thought it was going to be point night, but the jokes obviously was, Southern Ontario kid making his debut. Nope, we're going to see a 46-save performance out of him. I mean, that's not what I expected, but it was definitely it was the joke that was made. Now, that's what he ended up doing, though. 46 saves It was unbelievable. I'm just checking it right now. I believe I saw the number floating out there that in tonight's game in all strengths, and granted, they had a couple of power plays where they were zipping it around, which probably helped the expected goals statistic there. But through the 60 minutes of play, the Leafs had an expected goals for of 6.56 goals. 6.56 goals they were expected to score tonight based off the shot quality that they had. And he only allowed 3 of them. So that's pretty darn good for a goaltender in his first ever game going against one of the league's top offenses. And you have 3.56 goals saved above expected. Not too shabby for a kid making his debut in Toronto. Group of Leaf fan, I'm pretty sure. Little tip of the cap to Jet Greaves. So 3rd star for him.
Oh, huge performance. I mean, it's one thing to do it against a team like the Leafs to do your debut, like a player in your debut like that, but also to do it on a Columbus Blue Jackets team that just looks absolutely abysmal. Like that game, like we've seen teams just absolutely dummy Columbus, and it's because of the goaltending that did not happen
Yes.
tonight. So yeah, you give him credit. Hopefully, it's a nice story too. He's not exactly a young guy, youngish, right? 22 years old, if I'm not mistaken.
That's pretty young for a goalie. I mean,
Yeah, pretty young for goalie.
25.
Yeah, but he's someone that's kind of wasn't viewed as like a top
Yeah.
prospect.
Legitimately, I think this is just a case where the Columbus Blue Jackets want to lose every game from here on out. They're in the Bedard Bonanza. They want to lose as many games as possible and figured, you know what? Let's call up this random Jet Greaves character who we have in our system, who's from, the area and would probably be happier than a pig in bleep to come and get shelled because he gets to make his NHL debut in the city of Toronto with friends and family there.
And he's like, surprise.
Surprise. Oh, wow. He gave this team a chance to win the game.
What the heck is he doing that? That's what the Blue Jackets front
right? Kekalainen's like, guy, I literally tried to throw this game by calling this guy up and forcing him into the lineup. And all of a sudden, it's a 3-2 game in the final minute. What the heck's going on here? But no, definitely, congratulations to him and his family. I'm sure it was a really, really cool moment for him tonight, despite the loss. Probably still a night that he won't forget. All right, your 3rd star, Dave.
My 3rd star, I'm going to give it to the pairing of TJ Brodie and Morgan Rielly. I didn't get a chance to talk about the defensive pairings in the previous segment, so I figured this would probably be the best way to bring it about. It's that this is probably like Morgan Rielly's had some good games, but it kind of surprised me when I realized he had 9 shots on goal in this game. Like that's like when he was on the ice, there was a lot of time not being spent in his own zone. I think it just shows that level of comfort he has playing with TJ Brodie, while TJ Brodie and Jake McCabe is probably the better pairing in terms of a defensive pairing.
Yeah.
It's also good that, let's say, Sheldon Keefe feels like he has to split TJ Brodie and Jake McCabe apart. You can go to the good old faithful of TJ Brodie and Morgan Rielly, and it works out quite well.
Most of the time.
Well, yeah, majority of the time. Not all the time.
If Rielly's playing like he did tonight, which was relatively well, then it looks good. But we've seen nights where that guy was not playing some great hockey, and doesn't matter who his partner is. It sometimes doesn't look great. But I thought that it was pretty solid night for Mo as well. There was the 1 2-on-1. I thought that he committed to the shooter a little too much, where you want to kind of more so take the pass and give the shooter to the goaltender. But again, that's just being nitpicky. My 2nd star of the night is one Auston Taylor with an O or a U. I think it's a U. Matthews. Big night for him, man. Like, again, the only goal that he registered was an empty netter, but he could have had 2-3 goals tonight. Like, he was that good. His actual individual expected goals tonight, 1.98. He was expected to score 2 goals tonight. And I'm sure the expected numbers did not really come from that cross, literal full ice empty netter that he scored. It was all the close in tight chances that he had tonight.
Yeah.
9 scoring chances, 5 of which high danger. As I noted earlier, 6 shots actually hitting the goal. He was tremendous, and on both sides of the ice too. There was that one shift where he got hemmed in, but again, he's the one who ended up kind of dumping the puck down the ice and allowed them to get off for the change to negate or to not allow them to get scored on there when they're on the ice for like a minute and a half or so. But other than that, really, really solid two-way game tonight out of Auston Matthews with a couple of new, different line mates, I suppose. He's played with both for quite some time, just not together. So I thought he had a good game. Your second star.
He was my second star as well. I just think he impressed me because, again, he has to carry the line a bit more now with Mitch Marner moved off of it. I thought he did exactly just that, and continues to show the effort at both sides. Like, he's skating, he's just chugging along, and that's when he's at his best. And if he can continue to play like this going into the playoffs, this gives you really good confidence in how the Leafs can roll out their lines, and that they don't have to put Matthews and Marner together just to try to get that line going. Like, the fact that Auston Matthews is doing a lot more of that on his own is a really good sign.
Absolutely. Moving on to the first star of the hockey game, Dave.
Mr. TSN Zach Aston-Reese.
I thought you were gonna say TSN's Mike Johnson.
Oh, I mean, Mike Johnson also deserves shout outs because he's amazing too.
Did you hear the post game comments from Zach Aston-Reese?
I missed those ones.
Okay, it was pretty funny. He did an interview with Mark Masters post game, and he said, "Man, 8 of your 10 goals has come on TSN. You a big TSN guy? You like watching the channel?" And he's like, "Yeah, I mean, I think it's the guy between the box or between the benches, Mike Johnson. Yeah, tell him he's got to be here every night in the playoffs." It was funny. It's his good luck charm, apparently. Zach Aston-Reese's good luck charm is having Mike Johnson between the benches.
Apparently he didn't get the belt tonight.
Who got the belt?
So he said. So I think Mark Masters said he asked if he got the belt. He said no, thank God. He doesn't like giving speeches in front of his teammates. Alex Kerfoot got the honor tonight.
Kerfoot? I didn't mind Kerfoot's game. I'll be honest. I thought that he had a decent game. A little bit lower down the lineup, less responsibility, but he was all right tonight. I probably would have given it to Zach Aston-Reese, though. Like, I wonder if there was some reason. I'd love to hear the reasoning as to why Kerfoot got it, not the guy who scored 2 goals and quite honestly looked solid throughout the entire night. I mean, I thought that fourth line in general, we talked about it a little bit before, but like Camp, Zach Aston-Reese, and Lafferty, I thought that they drove play pretty well and were got those goals because they found themselves in the offensive end a lot of the time. Not that they were gifted with those opportunities, but this is a group that can turn defense into offense, right? David Camp wins a draw. They play well on their own end, and all of a sudden they're transitioning the other way. I think actually I did see there was a quote from one Auston Matthews. Yeah, he said Camper's line was unbelievable for us. Obviously, Risa with 2 goals, but I thought they drove play and just did a great job. So Auston Matthews giving some love to that fourth line and Zach Aston-Reese as well.
Yeah, this is the type of thing you need to see from your fourth line. I've been hearing ever since the trade deadline of how with all the moves that the Leafs made and all the guys that were traded out, scoring in the bottom 6 was going to be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then Zach Aston-Reese says, I'll score 4 goals on my last 10 games. No problem. I think or 5 goals in those last 10 games. I don't mind that, but that's where you got to get that. And they don't all have to be pretty. Just do what you need to do.
That second goal certainly was not like that's a lucky bounce. Like that's just getting a good bounce. To his point, he's in front of the goalie, like he's in the right spot.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like he's sitting in a corner or he's sitting on the perimeter. You're in that spot so that you can, get a piece of something, and maybe it turns into a goal. But also, you get a goal from Kerfoot, and Good night all around from the depth. I do want to give an honorable mention, Dave. We're 25 minutes into the show and we haven't brought it up yet, but I think an honorable mention definitely is deserving to go to Mitch Marner's equipment. Because, boy, did we ever survive a scare tonight. Almost.
Oh.
There was a little skate blade issue on on the back of Marner's leg. And he even said afterwards, he kind of felt something and he asked afterwards, is there a cut? Is there something wrong here? He knew that he had got stepped on. And luckily, the answer was no. All was good and there was no injury. Crisis averted. So honorable mention to Marner's equipment for keeping that guy safe. Now we need to bubble wrap this dude for the remaining 5 games of the year, because that is one player in particular that the Maple Leafs simply cannot afford to go down to injury.
Yeah, like imagine if like just a couple of inches lower on his leg.
Oof.
That's a bad situation there, because like, don't know if you know this, NHL hockey skates, like NHL player skates, are very, very sharp.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and like you watch that play so many times over and over again, and I don't know why I kept watching it over and over again, but you're just so fortunate of where it happened, and you know that's just the last thing the Leafs would have wanted to see. And I still was worried because of the way his reaction was, that, you know, maybe I think the initial reaction was the fact that he got stepped on and probably a muscle reacted a certain way. And, you know, when you get stepped on like that, especially somebody who's leaning a good part of their body on you, probably felt that in a part of the leg that shouldn't. But
He said, just to
add to that.
yeah, just to add to that, here's what he said in the scrum today. Marner on scary moment when Kent Johnson stepped on him. Quote, right away, it just felt weird. I didn't know really what it was. When I got back, I just asked our trainers if there was a cut or anything. Pretty lucky. Definitely a freak little incident there. I got the cut-proof stuff on my wrist, but not on my legs. Maybe I was lucky. He just wasn't a heavy guy, you know? It was a bit of a freaky play out there, but lucky enough, nothing came of it. Yes, very, very lucky.
Very, very lucky. And I think a lot of Leafs fans were counting their blessings at that point. So good thing that you brought that up.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of players, I ran into a former player today up in the press box. I will tell you about that interaction after I tell you about one of today's show sponsors, and that's our good friends at FanDuel. The NHL playoffs are almost here. Now is the perfect time to download FanDuel. It's North America's #1 sportsbook, because now customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet does not win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, super easy to use. You can bet on everything from the money line to shot props, goal scores, whatever you want. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at bigger payouts with the same game parlay. So don't miss your chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the Locked On Network. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti. Dave, I went to the game tonight. I did go down. I, had a couple of good stop-in chats with some media members. Spoke with Jimmy Ralph. Joe Bowen's birthday, by the way, will be technically today, as the episode is dropped on April 5th. So happy birthday to Bonesy, the voice of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I definitely give him a shout out. Beautiful, beautiful human being. You know, spoke to Taddy, David Alter, Josh Cloak, had a chance to chat with Jonas Siegel of The Athletic. And I also had a stop and chat at the coffee machine with a current Maple Leafs executive, former Toronto Maple Leaf, Jason Spezza. Ran into Spezza at the game. Two things, just a quick stop and chat. Just asked him, how you enjoying management and, He expressed that he's really enjoying it, but recently, has the itch to get back out there and playing, especially with the playoffs starting to come into focus, and which is completely understandable. But the funny part about the interaction I had with Jason Spezza, I fully went there to go and get a hot chocolate. I wanted a hot chocolate. That's why I went to the machine. So they got like coffee, tea, hot chocolate. Those are 3 options that they have up in the media center. And so I'm sitting there and there's somebody in front of me. They're doing their thing, making their coffee. I'm waiting. They leave. And as they leave and I'm up next to make my coffee, who comes right behind me in line? Jason Spezza. And I notice it's him. And I think to myself, I got to pivot. I can't be the guy who gets a hot chocolate in front of Jason Spezza. And I pivoted and I got a green tea. I got a green tea.
I was gonna say, how often do you drink green tea, Mike?
I mean, I don't hate green tea. Like, I am a tea guy by trade. I don't actually drink coffee. I do drink tea, but it was not what I meant to get, and it was not what I intended on getting. But I couldn't be the guy to get hot chocolate in front of Spezza, so I grabbed a tea packet and I was like, "Hey, Jason, go grab your coffee or whatever," and had a quick chatted him up for good 30 to 40 seconds as we made our beverages and we went about our merry ways. But yeah, a little run-in with Jason Spezza tonight down at the Leaf game.
No chance to try to see if you come on the podcast. Shout out for the podcast.
I didn't want the first interaction to be business. I thought just keep it.
You're working. You're greasing the wheels a little bit here. I see what you're doing.
That's it. I'm just trying to get a relationship with some guys in Leafs management, So maybe at some point we can try and get Spets on the podcast, perhaps. But for now, I think just trying to, make some relationships just by, asking about them, making them feel good, talking about them as opposed to asking for favors the second I meet the person.
I mean, Mike, we're Italians. We're all about the favors.
That's true. Paisan, come on. Spezza, if you're listening, join us. Open invitation.
Pretty sure he's Italian as well. He's got an Italian background too, so he knows a few things about favors.
He is. He's definitely Italian. So open invitation to Jason Spezza to join this show whenever he wants. I suppose any member of the Toronto Maple Leafs organization would have an open invitation to join this show. So that was the story. That was it. Just a quick stop and chat, just kind of cool to chat up Jason Spezza. And then, is that a pigeon move to completely on the fly change?
A little bit. That's a little bit. I was going to say, you know what? If you're going hot chocolate, just go for the hot chocolate. If they chirp you, just say, "Hey, man loves his hot chocolate."
He never would have chirped me, obviously, but I know in his mind he'd be like, "What's this loser getting hot chocolate? What is he, a child?"
Hey, man,
I don't want people thinking that.
It's what time at night you're gonna go out and get full. You may be one of those people that after a certain time, caffeine is off the table.
Yeah, but there's also a lot of sugar in hot chocolate, so that would also keep me up.
Yeah, but you're walking home. You're burning that stuff off.
Yeah, I am burning that stuff off. Good catch, David. Good catch. Caught that. Anyways, so there's the story about how I met Jason Spezza today at the game. Really quickly, let's get an update on Matt Murray. Last we heard was he was going to be reevaluated on Tuesday ahead of practice. We got our answer today. Kind of. It is a head injury is what it's being classified as. The word concussion was not used, but
it was brought up, though.
It was brought up. And Sheldon Keefe, when somebody tried to ask about that in particular, they were like, "Oh, is it a concussion?" He said, "I think I answered the question." You didn't really answer whether it's a concussion or not, but okay, Sheldon. But the thing about it is there was no timeline that was put. They just said, we'll take a little bit and see where things are. He was technically day to day, is what they are calling it. And I don't know how much I believe in the term day to day when it comes to this, just because there is an extensive history with Matt Murray and head injuries.
And the fact that Sheldon Keefe said, well, we'll see how it settles down, meaning it's not great right now.
Well, he also said he's got a head injury and
And other
other
stuff.
things. I don't know what other things are.
I wonder if like he's saying head injury, sometimes in those situations like whiplash, neck stuff on top of that. I mean, I don't know. Do we count that the neck as part of the head part? Like, are you
I don't
sure?
know.
That,
I
that
don't know.
that's kind of where when I heard that, I said, well, in that collision itself, I thought first and foremost, if he didn't have a concussion, at least whiplash, similar to what Noel Chari had,
Hmm.
is
Yeah,
kind of where when I heard that, that's where I was going. But
and he missed 3 games
3 games.
before returning tonight. So maybe we see Matt Murray next week. Definitely not going to see him next on Thursday. I think we fully plan on seeing in Boston Samsonov. I'd be
Yeah.
shocked if it wasn't Samsonov going in Boston on Thursday, and then I mean probably Joseph Woll Saturday against the Canadians. Potentially it could be Samsonov. I suppose I would go Joseph Woll. And then you're probably going to get a split between Samsonov and if Murray is able to come back, I guess he could start those last 2 games. If it's only a couple of games, or Wall gets the last 2 games of the season, I would think. But I don't know, man. I kind of would be shocked if Matt Murray were playing games during the regular season for sure. I could also see him missing out on some playoffs here, and if that's the case, it's Samsonov and Joe Wall tandem going forward, and not much of a tandem at this point. I think that would classify as a Samsonov as the clear cut number one, and Joe Wall as the clear cut number two. I don't know. You are you okay with that? Do you have confidence that that could work?
Yeah, I mean, Samsonov has proven he can take the mantle.
Let me ask you this actually. Are you less confident in that, or are you kind of indifferent? Uh,
Indifferent.
yeah,
'Cause,
same.
like you look at Matt Murray's season, it's been a very much up and down season. So just even if Joseph Wall gives you league average goaltending, which he's done above league average goaltending since he's been with the team.
Far above it, I
Yeah.
might add.
So like I'm not too worried about it. And look, Joseph Wall, he's got to show he can be an NHL goaltender. What better way than to put him in these sort of games right now where maybe the team isn't at its best and he has to kind of elevate his game a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah. I think he's
When I mean not at the best, I mean like defensively, there's been some mishaps and stuff like that. Like the team hasn't played perfectly defensively.
are you talking wall starts?
Well, just in general, like we've
Hmm.
seen. I mean, like you think back to the Detroit game, right? Like they didn't play great defensively. They made some pretty brutal mistakes, and like those test goaltenders a little bit more. And like that's the sort of game where you like to see if Joseph Wall can handle that. Matt Murray
Yeah.
didn't really handle it as well before he got hurt, so that's where I'm kind of thinking Joseph Wall. Let's see if he can handle the fire a little bit there.
Let me put it for you. Let me put it this way. In was it 9? I want to say maybe 9 of Matt Murray's last 11 starts. He's allowed 4 or more goals. You're looking at Joe Wall's last 4 starts with the Maple Leafs this season, 4-0, by the way, and hasn't allowed more than 2 goals in any of those starts. Pretty good.
Well, there you go.
Pretty good. So yeah, I don't feel like it's much of a downgrade from Murray to Joe Wall, just based on how both of those goaltenders have played this season, for being completely honest with each other. The only difference is, I suppose, it gives Samsonov a longer leash. As like, I don't think we'll see them go to Joe Wall as quickly as they would feel comfortable going to Matt Murray based on that prior pedigree. But that's really the only difference, I guess. Um, and we'll see what happens come
Yeah.
playoff time. 2 weeks from having a lot of those answers. So we'll see what happens. That'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcast platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti. Go ahead, leave a like on this video if you liked the content. Comment down below as well. That'd be fantastic. We'll be back another episode for y'all tomorrow. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.